Hello and welcome to Bastionland Broadcasting, where tonight I am doing something that, well, let me start afresh. I've been doing these streams now for almost a year, and to start with, my nerves were mainly to do with technological issues, like nerves that it just wasn't going to work, and those of you who were there will know that a lot of the time it just didn't work. But my nerves generally weren't about what I was doing, because I thought, well, I'm just whittering on about stuff, I can do this. And then I've ran a few games here and on other channels, and I've not really had nerves for that, because when you're playing with a group of people, you know, it's a collaborative thing. So I always kind of tell myself that, look, if I make any mistakes, the group will bring it together, because we're all working together to make this game, you know, to make it work. But tonight we are trying something out, trying out an idea that is not new, but of course I couldn't just let it lie. I decided to make something. So this is solo RPG stuff. We're trying a solo RPG, and there's been a lot of them coming out, especially this year for obvious reasons. And there's been new ones coming out, but also some that already existed have kind of really leapt up in popularity. So the big ones being like Iron Sworn, being the big kind of traditional RPG, I guess. And then a lot of these journal games, like 1000-Year-Old Vampire, things like that. So there's lots of solo RPGs out there now. But as always, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take what other people had already done and see how much I could remove and have it still work, which is basically just my thing now. I've accepted that this is what I'm doing with games. So I tinkered with a little system that ended up being called Ask the Stars. And as you can see here, if you look to the right, you can see a table here, which is basically the entire game. So the game is based around this table, which will give you some yes/no answers to questions, and it will give you a symbol and a position, which we'll get to. But it's basically like an oracle system if you've played anything like Iron Sworn before. So it's like a random table that's going to give you ideas. And yeah, you combine these together, and it's a little bit like the Spark tables in Electric Bastion. But yeah, I'm nervous because I've never done this before. I did try and play through a little bit of 1000-Year-Old Vampire, but to be honest, I just found it didn't click for me. And I gather it's great if you love journal games, but it felt more like I was doing like a creative writing exercise, which was fun in its own way, but it didn't feel like I was playing an RPG. And I think with the solo experience, you're not going to get that same experience that you get around a table with a group and potentially one person running the game, or at least multiple people bringing their ideas to the table. I don't think you're going to get that with a solo game. So I tried to sort of accept that this is going to be different, and that I'm not trying to recreate the typical RPG experience. Instead, it is more a little bit like a kind of improv challenge, but I do want there to be a game element in there as well. So this table is going to be giving us all of our results. We can ask questions, and the answers will either be a hard no, a yes, or a hard yes. And the symbol and the position is like some like tarot style bullshit, and like astronomy. It's deliberately vague and open to like interpretation, so that you can make it fit most situations. So yeah, that's going to be our main kind of rolling side of things. But at least half of this system is going to be based around what happens in this fantastic WordPad document that I've got ready. So there's some stuff in here that's going to get deleted because this is just my kind of guidelines. But when you're playing on your own, I think you need to have like a certain integrity. Otherwise, You can just, otherwise you're just making up stuff as you go along. You need there to be some kind of integrity and challenge element. So we're going to be keeping track of some things on here that are going to be, when we write something down in here, then it's kind of like it's set in stone. We're going to be imagining that like the fiction is a person at the table, if that makes sense. And the Ask the Stars table is another person at the table, and then I am the third person here. And the fourth person is, of course, all of you in the chat who have kindly come to help me through this potentially painful experience. So the other thing that I did that's made this especially nerve-wracking for me is I haven't really prepared anything because the whole point of this system is I talked up a big game about saying, yeah, you could just show up and it's no prep and you could just ask questions and get answers and then you don't need to prepare anything. So literally the only prep I've done is I've got the table ready and I've got this document ready. I have the 2 blog posts that I wrote. One of them is about the various signs that you can roll in here, and it goes into a bit more detail. We won't need to consult this every time, but it's there as a little bit of a helper. Same for the positions, which is like the other half of the roll. So you will get a position and a sign, and they will combine to give you like inspiration. And I have Wikipedia because I thought, what's the one thing I'm going to struggle on with this that can't be answered by yes and no? And that is names. Because I can't think of names at the table at the best of times. I just like look around and say, yeah, that their name is Shelf or something like that. And that's going to be tough to do. So I'm going to be using the Wikipedia random article button purely as a source of names. It's not going to be providing any inspiration. It's going to be names only. So what we need to do before we do anything is, you might think we need a character, but we don't even know what our world is yet. So I'm going to put this cheat sheet down a bit because that's for later to worry about. This is what I kind of said that we should have as our kind of like structure for the notes, because our notes are going to be really important. So we're just gonna, all we need to worry about to begin with is our character and their world. I've seen in the chat, thank you everyone for chipping in. Captain Catface asks about awful accents. I am all, as you well know, I am always up for doing terrible accents at the table. But I don't know, the idea of doing it in a room on my own, it's devastating. So I don't know. I'm not going to make any promises with bad accents. Mecharm says about a lot of Iron Swarm's core ideas coming from Mythic GME. Yeah, the Mythic GM emulator, which is kind of like, yeah, I think that is like the big one that kind of set a lot of the ball rolling in that kind of area. And yeah, there are lots of good solo RPG sources out there. There's a real like community around it because it is kind of difficult. I think there's a lot of sense of community there, and people are like, we're all in the same boat here, and we need to work together to make this work. So let's stop faffing around. Let's decide the world that we're going to be playing in. So, world. Use this section to keep any other notes that you think will be useful, especially characters and locations. Here, maps are especially useful. We're not using maps because I couldn't be bothered to get mapping software up and running. I wanted to keep it simple, really, and just have this one document to make it a real challenge. So if I was playing this at a table, I would definitely have some kind of map to sketch on in pencil, but we're not doing that. Before play, try to sum up the core of your setting in 3 bullet points and make an instigating situation that throws your character into making tough choices. Okay, so I've been thinking about this ahead of time, and I had a few ideas, but I've decided we are going to go pure zero prep. So I don't know anything about the setting. So I'm going to ask some questions. When I ask a question, I'm going to roll a d12 and it will tell me what the answer is. So I'm going to make things a little bit easier on myself. I can tell you now, this setting isn't going to be some kind of groundbreaking new genre. It's probably going to be something quite kind of like archetypal, because that will make it a little bit easier to ease myself in. I'm not going to like create the next genre of fiction here. So I'm going to ask, is it a futuristic world that we are in? The answer is yes. So I rolled a 7, which is a yes. So if we had got a hard yes, then I would take that as like maybe far future. So we're thinking like near future. So like kind of gritty sci-fi, let's say. So yeah, near future setting. Are we in space? 4. No, we are not in space. So I'm taking that to mean we're on like a near future Earth. So let's say this is like a kind of a cyberpunk style thing, which is interesting because I would have never chosen cyberpunk. I don't know if I've ever actually played in a cyberpunk game. So we're already going off in an unexpected direction. So we're in a kind of cyberpunk world. So you don't need to roll for everything. So I can derive from the fact that we are in a cyberpunk world kind of the two halves of cyberpunk, which is that there should be like technology and there should be a kind of oppressive nature to this technology, and there should be people who are being oppressed by this technology. So let's think. So yeah, I'll put people are being oppressed by technologically advanced corporations. Yeah, so that, I know that's like the most basic cyberpunk thing you can imagine, but like I think you've got to keep it's good to have a solid base, and then we might go a bit weird from there. So thinking about some other yes or no questions. So we're still focusing on the world here. So if I'm picturing like a typical Blade Runner cyberpunky thing, I'm going to ask, is that, so in terms of our specific setting, see, I kind of want to ask, like, are we in a city? It feels like it should be, because I know that there is this thing about like rural cyberpunk that's kind of a niche within that niche, but it's not something I'm really that familiar with. So I think we're going to say, are we, yeah, I'm going to ask, are we in a city? But the system that we have here with Ask the Stars is, instead of rolling just one d12, if you think a result is especially likely, you can roll 2 and keep the highest. If you think it's especially unlikely, you can roll 2 and keep the lowest. And it's on you to decide whether that's the case. And that's why I was talking about this integrity, because there's going to be times when our character is doing something that's unlikely to succeed. And then we have to say, no, look, we're going to roll. It's effectively advantage and disadvantage, isn't it? But I haven't thought of a catchy name for them yet. So I think it's likely we're in a city. So are we in a city? I'm going to stick to my integrity here. I rolled a 1 and a 4, which means no, we are not in a city. Now this is a good example of how you shouldn't roll the dice unless you're willing to accept the results, even if that result is unexpected, even if you've added modifiers to try and tweak the result to where you expected it. So no, we are not in a city. So now I'm like a little bit interested, like if we're not in a city, where are we? And I don't want to ask any more yes, no questions. I'm going to, a little coyote says outskirts of a city. Like, yeah, I could say like, oh, well, we're technically outside the city limits, but I want to embrace the challenge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll 2d12 for a symbol and a position. And I'm going to see if that tells us like where we are in this. So I'm imagining like a typical cyberpunk setting, but we're in a slightly non-typical place. I have to apologize that I'm going to be constantly rattling these dice in front of the mic. It's going to be happening, I'm sorry. So let's roll. I have got a 3 and a 3. So that is the cage twinned. Now, you can just take this at completely face value. So the cage twinned, you can try and imagine that being a location. So when I think of a cage, obviously you could think of like a prison or like a fortress. And twinned is sort of relating to like intimacy or dependency. So you can go as deep as you want to go. I quite like the idea of being like, maybe not a prison as such, but some kind of place where we can't leave. Like, yeah, I mean, someone has just said, Ranirin has just said in chat that we are, an isolated space station does sound cool. But let's, for the sake of exploring this system, let's see what the cage twinned actually means. So, the cage. The sacrifice of liberty for security, but consider the danger that can be positioned. So this is why someone needs to start like proofreading my blog posts, because one day I might have to read them out loud. The sacrifice of liberty for security, but consider the danger that can be positioned on either side of the cage. Stick to your word, laying down your life for the cause you have sworn to protect if that's what it takes. Some say that cages are made to be broken, but it's not your place to question. Just to hold strong for as long as you can. The cage tells you to close ranks and stay true to your oaths. If it all goes wrong, then at least believe that your sacrifice will be worth something. It can represent a soldier throwing down their life to protect their liege, a secret society forming a square around a member when threatened by slander, or a monk dedicating their life to the spiritual salvation of their peers. So it's like obligation, oaths. So maybe it's like we are... Yeah, I'm taking like massive cliches and putting them together because it's nice and easy. But like a kind of like the wall in Game of Thrones. So maybe we are like in whatever the cyberpunk equivalent of the wall is. Please don't say the firewall because that's a little bit too on the nose. But like a physical barrier somewhere. It could be like in cyberspace, but that's getting a little bit fancy for my tastes. So that was the cage. But the position was that it's twinned. So what does that mean? So the position is normally like, gives you like a bit more information or gives you like a twist on it. So I think we're getting an idea that we're in some kind of position that we are like oath bound to be there. We are obliged to be in this place. So the sign is repeated nearby. It's strengthened by its twin, but both are dependent on each other. Often when one leaves the skies, the other will follow. What relationships are strengthening this sign? Are they actually a source of strength, or is the co-reliance holding things back? An enemy could use this to exploit an alternative angle of attack, removing the queen to trap the king. So it's like two things that are connected, and we're one of them. So, I think... Captain Catface's anti-tech rural monk, which, you know, I do quite like that. Jelly Rovers says, could you have it that the corpse have forced people out into the rural society? In the grim darkness of the near future, there are only cows. I think I do quite like the idea of us being like on Earth. Because I did say, are we in space? And they said no. So I think the space station, we're going to stick to our integrity and say we're not in a space station. So maybe we are on like the wall around the city. So we are like, yeah, like a walled city. We are on the actual wall that exists outside the city itself, stopping people coming in and stopping people coming out. Again, I'm going to use the obvious name. I was going to put the ring, and I kind of want to call it the web ring, because I haven't said the word web ring out loud in about 20 years. I'm calling it the web ring because it's going to get silly at some point, so it might as well happen now. The web ring circles the city. It can just be the city for now. The web ring circles the city, preventing anybody getting in or out. So maybe it's like cyberpunk in the city where we're in, but like maybe it's a little bit more post-apocalyptic outside. I did have like a rough, I'm not going to reuse existing things I've written about before, but I had like a sort of unfinished idea for a setting where it was like if Mad Max is like the Australian post-apocalypse and it's all about cars and these crazy characters driving around, you know, flying through the air at each other, I was thinking like, well, what would a British apocalypse be like? And it was like the Apoca Shambles, and it wasn't that there was like a big atomic bomb. It was that like things just kind of fell apart a bit and things just stopped working and things went a bit crap. But then it kind of started to get a bit too real, so I stopped working on it. But I do quite like the idea that, like, you know, with Cyberpunk, it's like all about the city, but like we're taking the rural desolation to the extreme. I'm just describing like cybernetic Bastion land here, I guess, with with deep country outside of Bastion, but we're not calling it Bastion. Okay, so the web ring circles the city, prevent anybody getting in or out. We are one of the wardens sworn to protect it. Now, give me one more setting element, and then we'll get on with it. So I'm going to roll another set of symbols and positions. So 7 and 6. The child bowed. So the child is learning and greed. Greed kind of seems like an obvious fit here without the corporations and stuff. Bowed is submission or mercy. So it could be like learning. So I guess you could think of this like if learning is learning and submission, could be kind of like the citizens are only told what the corporations want them to. So yeah, there's no schools anymore. Corporations have got like full control of the city. Right, cool. See, this is, I'm not saying I've created something incredible here, but I've almost made it a little bit too like interesting. I was hoping to just make some stupid fantasy thing where I could then go into a dungeon because that's nice and easy to run. But no, let's do it. And we need an inciting incident, but I think we need to make our character first before we do that. So our character gets a strength and a weakness, and a name, which we'll get to. The good thing about Cyberpunk is the names are easy, because you can, I mean, I was joking about like looking around me and saying shelf, but shelf isn't a terrible Cyberpunk name. Like anything in this room that is plugged into a wall, I can use that as a Cyberpunk name. So we've got 9 and 4. The Elder, waning. Oof. So the Elder waning seems to push us in a very obvious direction. So perhaps we are like a senior warden, and we're like, yeah, so we're like an older person, and we are yeah, a bit more world weary. We've been on the web ring for a while, and perhaps we are, so we're waning. So hunger, decay. Yeah, maybe if we're going to go down the cybernetic route. So I'm going to ask some questions. So I'm going to ask a yes or no question. Do we have like cybernetic parts? 8. Yes, we do. I'm glad it said that, because I like the idea of us having like, so we're an older person, but it's more a case that our like cybernetic parts are going obsolete, and we're in need of repair. But we can't get that repair in the web ring, so maybe we've been sent into the city for like the first time. So that's our inciting incident. Let's do it. We're going into the city for the first time in years to seek repairs for my cybernetic body parts. Which body parts? I think like most of our body. At this point, maybe we were injured in service. Well, let's ask, were we injured in service? 4, no. Okay, so were we damaged in like an accident? 8, yes. So we suffered an accident and we got our cybernetic parts, but maybe that like because I'm assuming there's no national health service in this corporate nightmare. So maybe we were like rescued. This is part of our service. Part of us paying off our new cybernetic like parts is having to go onto the web ring and serve on there for a while. Okay, so we are senior, but it's not so much a case that we're old. It's just a case that we're like actually falling apart. Let's get our name. We're not going to take the name exactly as it was. Tragic Illusion 25. I mean, I do quite like. That does sound like the name somebody would have for their GeoCities page that would be on a web ring. This was an album by Paradise Lost. Okay, I as much as I do like Tragic Illusion. We're gonna make it a little bit more of a name. Our name is Travis Illusion, which now I've put it in that on there does sound like a stage magician, like a David Copperfield style Travis Illusion. Okay, cool. Senior Warden. So our strength is I guess like cybernetic body. Cybernetic isn't quite, I guess, like, what's the word that I mean, where it's like a bit of both. I guess like cyborg is the word that I mean, but I always think cyborg is not an amazing word. We'll stick with cybernetic body, but we're not a robot. We've just got like mechanical parts throughout our body. What's our weakness? I guess our weakness is that we're actually like falling apart. Obsolete parts. So we've got a strength and a weakness that are kind of in limbo here. So I think what we should do is we should pick. They clash up a little bit too much. So it's like, well, do we have like cool body parts or not? So I think we need to specify which bits of our body are good and which bits are bad. So I'm going to ask, is our like physical, like athletic capability, are those parts working all right? For no. So we're going to put like obsolete cybernetic body, but our electronic brain is fine. So I think like we've got like the full works, like of all our organs have got some kind of mechanical bits to them, and I think like the senses and like the brain parts of it all work well, but it's our actual body that's kind of like that needs repair. So we're gonna have to be a thinking cyborg. Yeah, Jelly Rover says, I hope Apple isn't the main corp. We're going to be like, we can't open ourselves up to repair. I'll say that. I think every single like phone in the world now, you can't open up anymore. Okay, cool. So we're going into the city for the first time in years to seek repairs. So this is our like inciting incident, and we're starting the game. And this is where I struggle, because when I've tried this sort of thing out before, this is where you reach the point where normally you would expect someone else to tell you some stuff. But the way that I'm trying to look at it is, and this was advice from David Black when I was talking to him on the podcast last series, and he was saying about solo games and how he found it helpful to think of it more like rather than like I'm the player and these systems are there to replace the GM. Think of it as much that I'm the GM and that system is there to replace the players. Like, not quite all that way, but it's more of an even thing. So you do still have to do a little bit of GMing. So you still have to like set the scene. So I'm thinking that we're obviously on some kind of like monorail, headed into the city, and we're headed towards. We've been given like a single contact. I'm holding it in my hand, but I imagine it's like a augmented reality little map that sort of we can see with our mechanical eyes, and yeah, we've been given a contact that we need to seek out, and that contact's name is Friedman. So we know that our contact is Friedman. So we're going to make this a challenge. So not everything is going to be a challenge. Sometimes it's just a thing we need to do. But a challenge is like something where we're going to have to do steps. So generally, if we can put like 3 checks against it, then we've done it. So it's going to take 3 steps to find Friedman. We've not done any of that yet. While we're on here, I'll just point out assets are obviously things that we're going to get as we go through it. And debilities are bad things that are going to happen to us. And if we get 3 similar debilities that stack up, there's going to be permanent damage. So if we take 3 wounds, we're going to be kind of dead. I'll get to our cheat sheet in a minute. We're going to freestyle it for a little bit first. So we're looking for Friedman, and we're on the monorail. So I'm going to ask, is it busy on here? And I think that's probably quite likely. Hard yes. So we are absolutely crammed into this monorail. This is like the ultimate fantasy experience, is being on very busy public transport and not being terrified. That's something I've not done for a long time. But yeah, we're packed into this monorail. And yeah, we'll say, is everything going smoothly with the journey? 5, no. Okay, so something's going wrong with the journey. I'm going to ask the stars for some symbols. So I have the Legion burning. So I'm going to take this one at very face value. And we're going to say that we're on the monorail. It's packed in. This is the first time we've been into the city in years. And the monorail's trucking along. But then we feel a jolt. And then we hear a grinding noise. And then a fire sparks from the front of the monorail where the sort of cockpit is. And you can just hear like screams coming from the front of the monorail. So, what are we going to do? So, does our character care about these people? I mean, I guess we are a warden and we've kind of sworn to protect the city. So I guess we could see that this is kind of an extension of our duty. So we're going to push through the crowd to try and get to the front of the monorail. And we're going to look for like any kind of like fire extinguisher or something like that. So we're going to roll... And I got a 12, so that's a hard yes. We can find a fire extinguisher. So we grab the fire extinguisher, run to the front of the train, and how bad's this fire getting? Is the fire? Well, no, I'm not going to ask how bad the fire's getting because we know that this is a threat to us getting there. So, this is where like when you hit a point like that where I've paused for a second, this is where I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. So. This is where, if you reach a point where you might want to ask yourself a question or you might want to ask the world a question. So at the moment, I'm kind of happy with what we're doing, but I feel like I need a little bit of guidance from the world about what's happening. So we need to think about information, choice, and impact, which will be familiar to anybody that's heard me talk about anything. So the information. What if I examine this more closely or in a different way? Yeah, so I could ask a bit more information about how dangerous does this fire look? Is anybody been hurt yet? Let's say. So I'm going to roll a die. Has anybody been hurt? No, not yet. So it's just a no. So at the moment, nobody has been hurt. Choice. What are some alternatives here? So our choice is: are we going to try and just like escape the monorail? So let's ask: is there a way to escape? Hard yes. So we're going to say that some people are just leaping out of the monorail. It's ground to a halt, and some people are leaping down, but there's the people in the front cabin. Perhaps they're separated by the fire or their doors have malfunctioned. So there are people trapped in there. So we can escape ourselves, or we can try and help the people that are in there. Impact. What is the likely outcome in the case of success or failure? So we could try and break the door open, in which case I imagine we would be able to get the people out of there. Or if we fail, I guess that we're going to get caught in whatever kind of fire damage is going to come out of there. Our body is obsolete. So breaking the door open is actually going to be, it's going to be working against us. So we've got like a nice tough decision here already, because chances are that we will fail if we try and rip this door open. But do we want to just leave them to it, or is there something else we can do? Is there something we can do with our senses or our like cybernetic parts? Is there a way that we can, like, rather than just trying to like brute force the door open, can we like R2-D2 style just like plug into something? So we're going to, using our like cybernetic parts, we are going to try and like interface with the door system. Now I'm going to say, we're not, even though we do have our electronic brain, I think this is like, we're not going to give ourselves good chance of success, but we're also not going to give ourselves low chance. We're just going to stick with the straight up die roll. So can we get the door to open? It's a 7, which is just yes. So we're sort of able to get into the tram systems, and the doors kind of stutter, and then they split open just far enough for somebody on the other side to sort of wrench them free, and the passengers just kind of swarm past us and go down the kind of escape slide off the monorail to safety. Well, let's just double check. Is that everybody? Is there anybody left inside the monorail? I'm going to phrase it carefully. Has everybody managed to escape the fire? 6. No. So there's one person left in there. So let's assume that this is like the pilot, I don't know, the driver or the conductor of the monorail is still trapped in the front compartment, and we're going to escalate things because it's always good to keep things moving forwards. And we're going to say there's no way that we can't access this system through our cybernetics, so we're going to need to like literally run through the fire and get to him. And we did pick up a fire extinguisher, but I think we're probably past that point now. We just need to get him out. So I don't know, should we go for it? Do we be a hero and potentially like wreck our body even further? I'm going to take the first answer in the chat. Do we be a hero? Do we be a hero? Should we be a hero? This delay on the chat is adding to the suspense for me. A Little Coyote says, yay. Jelly Rovers is a coward and says, no, get out of there. No, we're going for it. So we're going to try and rip the door open. But we're going to be rolling 2 dice and keeping the lowest. Oh, we rolled 2 9s. There's no extra for doubles. There should be something for doubles, but I'll talk about that later, why that isn't the case. So 9 is a yes. So a yes, the difference between like a yes and a hard yes is with a hard yes, you'd probably get some kind of extra thing. But with a yes, we are going to get him out, but we're going to just about do it. So we go in, we like rip through the door. Our like limbs are like, you know, they probably look quite impressive, but we can just feel like them kind of barely staying attached to our body. And we kind of rip the door open and grab the conductor and take them out and slide down the safety slide. And then I'm going to ask the all-important question. Should I make this a question? I'm going to make this a question. I'm going to give it a straight 1 die roll. Does the monorail blow up behind us? 1. 1 is a hard no. So after we escape, as soon as we are off the monorail, all of a sudden the monorail is just like, you just see like CO2 filling the monorail from the inside, which is suspicious, because why did that system not fire until we had all gotten off the tram? It's been too long since I've been on a tram. I'm craving it. Off the monorail. So it's making Travis Illusion think there may be more to this situation. So perhaps this was a deliberate attempt on our life. Maybe not, but I am going to put it in the challenges. Find out what caused the tram fire. Captain Catface says the Legion started the fire. Yeah, so we rolled like the Legion burning for that fire result. And the Legion is like unification and identity. So we could literally say it's like the Legion, and that's a faction in this world. But the Legion kind of represents like, you know, the group over the individual. We can do so much more when we cast off our own names and chant for our cause as a single voice of thousands. The Legion is the rush you feel when you're marching in step with your compatriots, when you cheer at a flag being raised, and when you almost feel no control over your own body and voice. So this was like a hit job from like an organization. We'll come back to them. We'll call them the Union, the Legion. We'll call them the Legion for now. Find out what caused the tram fire and if the Legion were involved. Now, we could go and like ask a load of yes/no questions about the Legion and like flesh out that kind of faction now, but I don't think we need to, because there's already some ideas firing in there. And whereas I'm normally all about information, I think you can treat this a little bit more like a work of fiction where you leave a little bit of suspense. So we've escaped the the monorail fire. Now, I'm going to ask, are we in... are we far from our contact with Friedman? Is it still a long distance for us to get to Friedman? No. So it's probably just like it's a walkable distance. So we're going to head through this bit of town. We'll just get a little bit of flavour for this bit of town. It doesn't need to be that crazy. Now I've rolled the Elder Twinned. So the Elder is like authority and tradition, but the Elder is also the symbol that we've rolled for ourselves. And Twinned is intimacy and dependency. So maybe we, on our way, we sort of bump into somebody who we know from our previous time in the city. And I'm going to roll to see who they are. We've got 3 and 5, which is the Cage, Rooted. So rooted can mean like roots in the sense of like stability. So maybe somebody from like our former life before we had this accident and before we were like shipped out to have to serve on the web ring. And the Cage is like protection and obligation. So maybe somebody we actually like owe a favor to. Yeah, let's check, because it might be someone that owes us a favor. And I ask, is it somebody who protected us? Hard yes. So it's somebody who protected us. Maybe it's the person who like rescued us, who saved us from dying from that accident. Maybe it's not necessarily the person, but it's a member of that organization. So we were sent to serve on the web ring by the corporation that provided our replacement body parts. And that corporation is the Tornado Corporation. Ultimate, I'm going with it. It's a corporation called Ultimate Tornado. We're going to put that in the world. So Ultimate Tornado provided our mechanical parts, and we're serving on the web ring to pay the debt. I haven't got any original ideas, have I? Because there is like this is already just turning into Electric Bastion with debt, and like there's a wall warden failed career in there. So yeah, so we even like passed we passed like a huge tower that is like the HQ of Ultimate Tornado, and as we pass by we get a kind of message flashing up in our kind of AR interface, And is it a nice message? Oh, that's a hard no. So we get a message from Ultimate Tornado Corp, and it says like, welcome back to the city, citizen. We can see from our sensors that you're in possession of a number of augmented replacement cybernetic organs and limbs provided kindly by Ultimate Tornado. You have a balance of 6 million credits remaining on your payment for these parts, which was due to be served on the web ring, and we can see that you still have many years of service left to pay. Please report in to the Ultimate Tornado offices to meet with a corporate liaison to arrange your immediate return to the web ring. So I'm going to ask, did we get permission from whoever is running the web ring? Did we get their permission to come into the city for these repairs? Or are we doing it in kind of a, are we like AWOL effectively, sneaking out to get this repair done? Now, when you ask a question, sometimes you will know that you want the answer to be a certain way, like I said earlier. And I really want the answer to be yes, that we have kind of snuck in. So I'm just going to say yes. You don't have to roll. So I'm going to say that yes, we have snuck in. So strictly speaking, we aren't meant to be in here. We are meant to be serving on the web ring. And we were hoping to avoid contact with Ultimate Tornado, but obviously this whole monorail crash has caused some issues. So what we're going to do we report in and try and talk our way out of this, or do we try and sneak away? I think we're so close to the repair shop. I think we're just going to absolutely make a break for, oh, we can't run because our fucking body is knackered. But, you know, getting caught wouldn't be that bad. Let's go for it. Sometimes it's fun to fail. So, we are going to make a run for it. We're just going to pick up our speed and see if we can run to the repair shop. Maybe we can even, like, see the sign in the distance for Friedman Repairs. Let's do it. We're gonna run. It's going to be 2 dice. We're going to take the lowest. The lowest is a 1. So that's a hard no. So we start to run, and we feel our joints kind of seizing up already. But then, like, an alarm goes off on our kind of AR system, and all of a sudden our limbs just like collapse, and we fall to the floor, and they've been like disabled remotely. So we're going to wake up inside the Ultimate Tornado Corp building. Do we recognize the person that's with us? 1. Hard no. We don't recognize them. But what's an even more no version of that? Maybe they are like completely faceless. Or here's a better one. I'm stealing this idea, obviously, I'm stealing everything for this game. Maybe it's like that episode of Black Mirror where we can't recognize them because our cybernetic eyes were provided by this corporation, and that their faces are pixelated in our vision, so we can't identify them. And maybe we can't hear them because they're talking about us. So they've got us kind of like in like some kind of cell, and the kind of the face is like pixelated of the man that's looking over us, and he's going to ask us, what are you doing in the city, and why have you left your post on the web ring? And then this is where we're going to go back to our cheat sheet. So he's asked us that, and I was going to just try and like talk our way out of it, But rather than saying we talk our way out of it, we're going to ask ourselves, what exactly are we doing? What's the desired outcome? And what established fiction makes this possible? So action, objective, leverage. So what sort of approach are we going for to try and talk our way out of this trouble? I think we maybe try and... we just try and lie our way out of it. We'll try and go the whole route of, like, if you're dealing with one company, blame a rival company. So we'll say that we were provided with a day pass by our supervisor on the web ring in order to get repairs so that we can better fulfill our duties on the web ring, because unfortunately the parts that we are provided don't seem to be working very well. And what's our desired outcome of this? Our desired outcome would be like we want to get out basically, but how are we going to make this possible? Yeah, we are just going to try and like reason with this person's human side, which I now realize is like a stupid way. So I'm not going to give myself a good chance of success here. We're going to roll 2 and take the lowest. That's a 4. That's a no. So he's having none of it. So he says, we've checked with your supervisor and no such permission was granted. So you're going to be returned to the ring with an additional cost added to your debt to reflect the inconvenience. Come this way and we'll take you to a transport right away. So we're going to like go quietly, but as we're getting taken to the transport, I'm going to ask, do we see an opportunity for escape before we get put into the transport? And I'm going to ask for a symbol or a position here, because I'm kind of asking for inspiration rather than a yes or no. So we've got 2 and 4. So that is the wings waning. So the wings represents like freedom and nature. So it could be like nature in the city, but here freedom seems like our, it's our opportunity for freedom. And waning is hunger or decay. So maybe we're going to like literally like, maybe we literally can't make it to the transport. So we're going to like, as we're walking to the transport, one of our legs kind of fails and starts seizing up. And we sort of say, look, we can't, will be no use when we get to the web ring. 2 of my limbs aren't even working. Just take me to the repair shop down there. And I'll happily have the debt added on with compound interest. So the man is like, fine, we'll go and get you repaired, but you will be having extra, you'll be having the extra cost added on. So we go to the repair shop, and we're being escorted, unfortunately, by this corporate, pixelated faced jerk. Now, when we get into the repair shop, we're looking for Friedman or Friedman. And what do we see when we get in there? 8 and 3. So 8 is the traveller, which is wandering and chance. And 3 is twinned. So the traveller, let's just see what we get here. So symbolised as a walking stick or sword. This is the romantic version of ourselves that follows the wind and leaves everything to fate. They close their eyes and trust that their destiny is planned, stepping out boldly into whatever the universe has planned for them. Forget about your origin and your destination. All that matters is this step on your journey. So it could represent a knight without a liege, an artist travelling in search of inspiration, or a gambler that lost everything on the roll of a die. So I think this engineer or this repair person, Friedman, I like the idea that I did say that you could like see the shop, but maybe they're not operating out of a, maybe they're operating on like a mobile shop. So it's more like a van. Imagine like a food truck, but it's like a repair food truck. So he's got like all limbs hanging out the side. you know, lights all across the roof, and it's like a mobile repair shop. And he's very much kind of like values his freedom. So I don't think he's going to be terribly happy to see a representative from this big corporation here. So I think he is going to try and make a break for it. We're going to see him start to sort of close up his hatches, and we are going to try and jump in to the van and sort of ride along with him to get away from this corporate guy. Now, sometimes you need to think about the question you're asking about yes or no, because what you don't want to have is a situation where no means that the story just stops. So I'm not going to ask about whether we can get onto the truck and escape. I think we are going to cling onto the truck. I'm going to ask whether we can safely get ourselves inside the truck, or whether we're going to have to cling to the outside of the truck as it speeds away. So again, an obsolete cybernetic body is not great here. So we're going to roll 2 and take the lowest. 6. No, we are not able to get inside. But it's not a hard no, but we are going to take a debility for that. So I think we are just going to outright lose a limb in doing that. So he slams the door, but we manage to kind of cling onto the handle. And as the truck is speeding away, one of our legs just falls off and like clatters into like a pile of shrapnel. So we're going to have a lost leg. And is the corporate guy going to give chase? 11. Hard yes. So not only is he going to give chase, he's able to like maybe like a sort of like a few patrol cars from their like corporate police were passing by, and they're able to come speeding after us straight away. So they're going to be coming after us, and seeing us kind of clung to the back of this van. I think Friedman doesn't maybe even know that we're on there. We're just clinging to the back of it, but these 2 patrol cars can kind of see that we're on there, and it's going to be looking a bit suspicious. So they're going to be doing what they can to try and maybe knock us off. So do they succeed in doing that? I'm going to give this a straight like single die. Can we avoid getting like smashed up further by these cars? I got a 12, which is a hard yes. So maybe like we're able to sort of like pull ourselves up, and as they kind of clatter into the back of this truck. You know, we said Friedman, he values his freedom. So if he senses that they're after him like this, he's probably going to he might have some kind of means of shutting them down. So he's going to reach out, throw something out of the window. We see it clatter past us, and it's like a flashbang just goes off next to one of the patrol cars, and it kind of like spins to a halt, and you can hear it kind of stalling. So it's like some kind of EMP or something has like shut down the vehicle entirely. And then Friedman's able to speed off, and we're going to just about now, we've got a bit of time, pull ourselves into the van. So we are inside Friedman's repair truck, and I think we're going to leave it there for tonight. But this has been pretty fun. It's been a good challenge, to say the least. And yeah, thank you everyone for helping me along with this so far. So we had about like half an hour of like world and character creation, about half an hour of play. Maybe I'll come back to this if people want to see more of this story, or maybe I'll try a different one. But it was really just a bit of an exploration, and yeah, I'm glad that that's worked to some extent. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I am going to use this opportunity. I know I said I would only do this like once a year, but I've changed the way that my Patreon works. So I am going to plug the fact that my Patreon is now supporting these videos, because it was a weird situation before where like the Patreon was funding the blog and the blog posts, but it wasn't funding like some of the podcasts, and it wasn't funding the video stuff. And the fact is, I do spend quite a bit of time doing these streams and doing the podcasts and stuff. So it felt weird that like people weren't sure what they were actually contributing to. So now it is a monthly fee and it covers everything. So you're kind of contributing to the whole shebang, whether you're watching the videos or the podcasts or reading the blog post. It's all kind of covered in there. So if you go to patreon.com/bastionland, if you do want to support me, that is much appreciated and makes these videos and podcasts and things much more viable for me to spend time on. So yeah, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that there will be an extra stream tomorrow. I try and do 2 streams a week, but the second stream is going to be in a bit of a weird time. So tomorrow there may be a stream related to Grimlight. But yeah, until then, thank you again for joining me and for making this enjoyable. And goodbye for now.